The most skillful wife cheater ever. I know my wife is cheating on me. I just know it. But damn it, I can't catch her. It's Saturday morning, and I'm sitting at my lawyer's office. My lawyer, Roscoe Noble, handled my divorce from my first wife, so he's experienced in these matters. He hired a private investigator to look into my suspicions. What's wrong with me? My first wife started cheating on me almost before the new sheets came off her wedding bed. Now my new wife is doing the same thing. I must have "Please give me horns" written on my forehead. The private detective shook my hand and introduced himself as Tom Pickens. He was a slightly overweight, short man in khaki pants and an unassuming polo shirt. He was unremarkable and would never stand out in a crowd, probably a good trait for a private investigator. We all sat down. Roscoe said, "Okay, Tom, tell us what you found." Tom cleared his throat. "Yes, sir, Mr. Noble. I started working on the case Monday morning, right after we talked. I went straight to the college and saw Mrs. Ann Powers' car in her assigned parking space. I walked by her office and observed her in her office. I interrupted him. "Tom, can you just give us an overview and include the details in your report?" Tom replied, "Oh, sure, Mr. Powers." Tom paused to gather his thoughts and then continued. "I've had Mrs. Powers under surveillance all this week until last night. She leaves the house between 08 WAS and 08:15, heads straight to college, and returns home between 4 AS and 5:30 p.m. Her daily routine seems normal enough: conferences with students, faculty meetings, office work, trips to the library, and the like. She usually goes to the gym around 11 a.m. and then eats a bag lunch at her desk. There is only one unusual activity. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Mrs. Powers left college between 1 and 1:10 p.m., walked downtown, and walked into Henry's Continental Restaurant and Gourmet Food Store. She left there between 3:45 and 4:10. Roscoe asked, "Did she meet with anyone at lunch? Could you identify who with?" I interrupted. "No, Henry's only serves dinner on Tuesday and Saturday. It's one of our favorite restaurants. It's very popular with the academic crowd. The owner is Henry Manigault. He is a promising chef and restaurateur." Roscoe asked, "Anything between Anne and Henry? Any hint of attraction, stolen kisses, long hugs, and the like?" "Come on, Roscoe. This is the South. Women here kiss and hug everyone as if the 5-second acquaintance was a long-lost uncle or aunt or boyfriend. We all know each other, and there is nothing unusual between them that I know of. But then again, I'm only a husband, so I'm the last to know," I muttered. "Good. Is there any reasonably innocent explanation for why Anne spent 3 hours in a closed restaurant 3 times this week?" Roscoe asked. I shrugged and said, "Henry is a good-looking, outgoing guy. He flirts with all the women, including Anne, and they all adore him. So who knows?" Tom put in, "Well, the restaurant has a gourmet food store that is open during regular business hours and offers cooking classes every other Saturday. However, when Mrs. Powers was there, no classes were offered. I can't imagine Mrs. Powers being able to entertain herself for 3 hours in that little store." I added dryly, "I assure you it's impossible. Anne and fine dining? Definitely terra incognita for her." Tom continued, "I walked around the store several times. I saw no sign of Mrs. Powers, nor did Henry Manigault, and when someone asked for him, the clerk dryly replied that he was unavailable. I was drawing attention to myself, so I stopped going in. On Wednesday, my wife went in there several times. She didn't see Mrs. Powers either. I also charge the usual rates for my wife's time." Roscoe said, "That's fair, Tom, no problem. What else do you have?" Tom sighed. Roscoe said, "Not much. It's a complicated case. Mrs. Powers must be the most skillful wife cheater I've ever encountered." "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Powers." I just waved for him to go on. Tom continued, "My wife is doing an electronic investigation and has been checking the contacts of both Mrs. Powers and Henry Manigault. She hasn't been able to find anything worthwhile on either of them. Henry is single and has had 1 or more girlfriends on a regular basis, but there is nothing scandalous about it. Although we have no information about his current girlfriend, he's definitely upbeat and cheerful. Apparently, he hasn't had any affairs with married women, at least we couldn't find anything. Henry used an online dating service, but a lot of singles do. Lately, he stopped socializing there. Mrs. Powers' electronic footprint is as clean as freshly fallen snow. We ran her financials. No new credit cards, no personal loans, no problems the credit scoring companies might have had. No public record, except that Mrs. Powers had a speeding ticket 4 years ago. A clean, decent history in every respect. Roscoe looked at me. I said, I did the homework you asked for. I went through 3 months of credit card payments and phone records. Nothing that I couldn't explain. I checked her cell phone while she was napping. No strange messages, no strange calls to unexplained numbers, nothing on her home computer or her regular or university email accounts. I have all her passwords. She always mixes them up and has to ask me to remind her. She's a history major, not a technology major. I didn't find anything suspicious. Roscoe sat with his lips pressed together. Finally, he said to me, Jim, what I'm saying is that maybe you're just paranoid. That's understandable after your experience with your first gold-digging wife. I really like Anne. You two seem like the perfect couple. But this restaurant thing is very suspicious. I guess things aren't always what they seem. I sighed. It doesn't make any sense. Who would have sex for hours in a closed restaurant? Getting a hotel room is a hell of a lot more convenient. Or go to his house. He's single. The whole restaurant thing just sounds dubious. Roscoe suddenly began rummaging through a folder full of papers that looked like an accordion. After a minute, he said, Yeah, I might have something. Tom told me about Henry's restaurant visits on Wednesday night. I asked the paralegal to check everything I could find in the courthouse and city records on Henry. Here is Henry's application for a building permit, a 5-year-old application that includes a layout for remodeling the old Johnson's department store into his current restaurant. Roscoe turned over 2 sheets of floor plans so Tom and I could see them. He continued, Here's the first floor, the cooking store, restaurant and bar, restrooms, kitchen area, and storage. On the second floor is a large classroom, restrooms, storage area, and here, in the back, is an area designated as a studio apartment with its own bathroom and shower. We silently looked at the plans that showed the studio apartment. I said, Well, chefs have been known to work long hours. It might make sense to have an overnight stay there in the restaurant, but it's also undoubtedly a comfortable love nest. Roscoe nodded his head. It really is. After a pause, he continued, Jim, I'm afraid Anne is messing with your head and entertaining Henry between the sheets. There's no use in gilding the lily. Tom, keep watching. Jim, keep your eyes and ears open on the home front. Anne is a sharp little thing and hides her handkerchief better than most others. She'll make a mistake. They always do. Then we'll nail her just like we nailed your first wife. On the way home, my head was splitting. With my first wife, I think I can understand her cheating. We got married too soon and too fast. She was studying art in her last year of college when we got married. A beautiful girl. She was also a self-centered social girl. Not to mention, she definitely expected to be high maintenance when she became a wife. As for me, I came from a simple construction family. I majored in civil engineering and was working on my MBA when we got married. My dad was drafted to Korea, was an Army engineer, came back and enrolled at Clemson through the Army draft. He then scraped together enough money to buy a concrete plant and made a small fortune in the post-war boom years. I realize now that my first wife saw me as a dollar sign, not a lifelong partner. She got more in the divorce than she ever could have gotten with her Bachelor of Arts degree. Dad had a stroke a few years ago and ended up taking over the concrete company. I brought modern engineering and business practices to an already successful company. We grew, and now we're pretty darn rich. My sister went to law school, and with all the construction litigation and the inevitable involvement in our cases, she became a pretty rich construction law guru in her own right. My first wife must be berating herself for not being more prudent and waiting until a more lucrative financial plum grew on the marriage tree. But my current wife, Anne, I just can't believe she's unfaithful either. We've been married for a little over 2 years now. She's 8 years younger than me, but she's an intelligent, mature woman with a good head. She has a doctorate in history and has been an assistant professor at a local college for 4 years now. We met in a Methodist Sunday school class for single adults shortly after she came to town. After dating for a year, we became engaged and then married 6 months later. We had a nice time, got to know each other, met each other's friends and families. We did everything right. I swear my family likes her more than me. Anne is my best friend. The sex is great. The family is friendly. I actually do all the cooking because Anne, God bless her, is a terrible cook. She has wasted her time becoming an academic muse rather than a domestic goddess. In January, Anne finished her book on the colonial warfare of the Yamasee Indians. We all expected it to be a typical bore from an academic history professor. I read this book as my marital duty and was blown away. Anne has a gift for telling a story as if it were a novel and bringing that long-ago tragedy to life. I read the whole thing in a Saturday. It's great. The professional and popular press has also liked the book. Anne has been interviewed by NPR and several local TV stations. She's even been invited to several book awards, and she's doing a lot of book signings and speaking engagements. Anne is over the moon about the success of her book, but she earned it with hard work. She jokes that when all the royalties are totaled, she'll produce the book for less than half the legal minimum wage. Nevertheless, the book and its professional and popular reception were a major factor in Anne's expected promotion to associate professor, perhaps next year or just afterward. But having been burned by milk, I'm blowing on water as well. Anne exhibits the classic signs of a cheating wife. Working so hard on her book, she has gained a few extra pounds. Not that I was foolish enough to mention it to her. The book came out in January, and she started working out at the gym in February. Now in July, she's in the best fighting shape I've ever seen her in. She looks really good. Her first royalty checks were spent on some attractive, sexy outfits and lingerie. She laughed and said she was spoiling herself. This is uncharacteristic of her, as she is an old-fashioned Methodist cheapskate. She teased me. Don't I love seeing her in her new lingerie? I'm delighted, of course. But I wonder who else enjoys the sight of my wife in this sexy lingerie. She is also very affectionate. Is this just a release from the pressure of writing a book or a guilty conscience? Anne isn't teaching this summer, but she still goes to her office every day. She's working on initial ideas for the second book she's telling me about. She also has 3 graduate students who are writing dissertations, so she has to work with them several times a week. Still, her workload is light during the summer. The week before last, we finished a big state road paving project early, and I happened to have a free day, which is rare during construction season. I stopped by the university to see if I could lure Anne home for an afternoon of bedroom aerobics, a suggestion she'd normally jump at in a heartbeat. She wasn't in her office, so I peeked into the main office of the history department to see if she was there. 2 female students were copying and assembling a massive project on some professor's paperwork at the front desk. I asked, "Hi, I'm looking for my wife, Profess Powers. Have you seen her by any chance?" The 2 girls looked at each other, holding back smiles. The blonde girl replied, Yeah. She was here the other day, said she was going to the library." Closing the door behind me, I heard the girls trying unsuccessfully to hold back laughter. Even the kids know she's cheating on me. I walked through the library, and sure enough, no Anne was there. That evening, as I poured each of us a glass of Shiraz during happy hour, I carelessly mentioned, "We finished early today, so I stopped by to see you in the afternoon. But you weren't there. The girls at the front desk said you had just left for the library." I watched Anne carefully. She tensed for a moment, and a slight blush appeared on her cheeks and neck. She looked away as I held out a glass of wine to her. "Oh, I'm sorry. I've missed you. Yeah. I try to spend a few hours every day at the library researching materials for my new book. I didn't realize I'd caught her in a blatant lie. I'm being played for a fool. 2 years after marriage is the best time for a young wife to get bored and start casting glances, and perhaps more than glances, outside the marital fences. Now is she cheating, or am I just being paranoid? I know the answer. I arrived home and the rest of Saturday passed quietly. I did some chores around the yard. Anne made an appearance at a bookstore in Augusta. At least that's what she told me. It's quite possible that she is now having a passionate affair with her lover. When Anne got home at 6, we went to a friend's house for a nice evening and dinner. Everything seems fine, but my stomach turns over every time I look at my cheating wife. We got up Sunday morning and headed to early church. We skipped Sunday school and I made an omelet for brunch. We enjoyed it while we looked at the newspaper together. Anne dropped her unexpected statement on me as we finished our coffee. She smiled mischievously at me, which in the past has always heralded some crazy funny idea. Now I'm just wondering who with. Honey, I want the house to myself from 1 to 6 today. Why don't you go golfing? You haven't had that opportunity in a long time. And I want you home at 6 sharp. I'll have a surprise for you. I stuttered in utter confusion. What, Anne? Why? She just laughed merrily. Well, silly. If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, would it? Now grab your clubs and golf shoes and go have some well-deserved fun. I was in no mood to argue, so I grabbed my golf equipment and headed for the exit. On the way to the country club, I called Tom on his cell phone and assigned a private investigator to watch the house until I got back. I chatted with the 3 guys at the club and we played a round of golf. My lack of practice and scattered mental state took its toll and, as the loser, I bought a drink on the 19th hole when we were done. It was actually a pleasant and relaxing day that lifted my sour mood. As I prepared to head home, I texted Tom watching my house and Anne. Anything? Tom's reply followed immediately. Nothing. As quiet as a graveyard. Mrs. P went out to the garbage can once. That's about it. What's going on? Did she notice our surveillance? Is she really such a brazen cheater that she sends me off to play golf while she meets her lover right under our noses? Our house adjoins a wooded parking lot, and her lover certainly could have slipped in behind us, unnoticed by Tom. She's a really smart girl and obviously as cunning as the devil. Do I come home and find Henry there? Am I being kicked out? Or has my marriage suddenly become one of those modern, open arrangements? Who knows what this woman is capable of? I arrived home at 6, as instructed. I opened the front door and was greeted by Anne, who handed me a scotch with the words, "Right on time. Good. I saw you pull up. Here's a drink. Come on in, sit at the table. I have a surprise for you." Anne was excited and running on high octane. I have no idea what she's up to, and the whole thing baffles me. It's just like the good old days when we first got married. She nudged me toward my seat at the table. The table was set with our finest silver and china, with red wine already poured into our crystal. The candles on the table were lit, creating a festive mood in the room. At least there was no third seat at the table. "Stay here and enjoy your scotch." Anne rushed into the kitchen. I couldn't imagine what my crazy wife was doing. She returned 5 minutes later, carrying plated plates that were accompanied by a delightful aroma. Despite my suspicions about Anne, I couldn't help but laugh. "What are you up to?" I said as Anne quickly placed the plates of food on the table. Anne took the lid off my plate, struck a pose, and said, "Voila," with perfect French pronunciation. "Julia Child says this is the most delicious beef dish ever made by man. Did you cook it?" "No way," I said, laughing. "Anne can't cook a hot dog, let alone French haute cuisine." "But I cooked it," Anne exclaimed, pouting her lips pretentiously. "Henry Manigault is giving me cooking lessons this summer." "What?" was my stunned reply. As Anne quickly handed out the food, she chatted cheerfully. Henry's niece, Jean, was working with us on her master's thesis, and her supervisor suddenly had to take a leave of absence for chemotherapy. I picked the girl up at the last minute and worked with her on her thesis. Anne was quiet for a while. She really is a sweet girl. Anyway, we had to scramble, but we got it all done and got through the system. She graduated right on schedule last May. Henry came up to me at graduation to thank me for helping his niece. He said he overheard you all teasing me at the restaurant about how I couldn't cook. Said he'd like to give me cooking lessons as a thank you for helping Jean. Anne shrugged her shoulders and continued chatting. I have some free time in the summer, so I went to his cooking classes at his restaurant a few times a week. It was a little intimidating at first, but it's actually a lot of fun. This dinner is my debut into the culinary world. I should call Henry later and let him know how it went. If you like it, he's willing to keep practicing and is going to greatly expand my knowledge of the art of haute French cooking. How about that? I do have the wife I've always hoped for. Now she can cook on top of that. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.